The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. Your time is 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher. With another storm on the way, county officials are preparing for the possibility of more flooding and evacuations. The incident management team says firefighters took advantage of a break in the wet weather yesterday to assess the damage from the last storm. Officials say flooding is receding in many areas, but the damage is considerable, adding that residents need to stay vigilant and be prepared as more rain arrives. One area of new concern is near Cane Peak Court above Wofford Heights, where an evacuation order has been issued due to soil instability that could lead to landslides.
We have an area of the mountain where we've had several fires over the years. It is starting to slough in that area, and it has some concerns. We have a soil engineer taking a look at it, giving us updates and what we need to address there. The Kern River has subsided over the last couple of days, pretty dramatically off. We do expect it to come back up, but not into the levels that we've seen in the last several days.
Chief Administrative Officer Ryan Alsop signed a state of emergency proclamation that will be presented to the Board of Supervisors later this morning. If approved, it will allow for more funds to assist local communities affected by the storm. All evacuation orders issued for Kernville and Wofford Heights remain in effect this morning. There is an evacuation center at Kern Valley High School on Erskine Creek Road in Lake Isabella. The previous evacuation center at the Elks Lodge in Wofford Heights is closed.
Meantime, officials also have their eyes on the community of McFarland, which saw significant flooding after Poso Creek overflowed its banks. The incident management team says there's still a notable amount of water near the community of Pond and Highway 43, adding there were multiple levee breaches all the way from the 43 to Highway 65. All evacuation orders remain in effect for this area as well. An evacuation center was set up in Delano at the 11th Avenue Community Center. There you can find food, water, EMTs on site, and spiritual care if needed.
Not only can flooding be dangerous, the water itself can be harmful to your health. Kern Public Health Director Brent Kerrigan says the water could contain toilet waste, hazardous chemicals, heavy or sharp objects, live or dead animals, and downed power lines that can electrically charge the water.
Avoid contact with floodwater whenever possible and wear personal protective equipment if you have to make contact with floodwater or items that may have been contaminated with floodwater. Wash your hands with warm, clean water and soap after contact with floodwater or items contaminated with floodwater.
Public Health is continuing to assess hazards in the flooded areas in Kern County. Among their efforts, surveying water systems and septic systems for possible contamination.
And those living in impacted areas can prepare for this next storm by protecting your home with Sandbags. Lamont, Lake Isabella, Walker Basin, Lebec, McFarland, and Tehachapi have all received sand from Kern Public Works in anticipation of the heavy rainfall. We have the full list of sandbag locations on our website, kget.com. And just a reminder, as we continue to deal with these dangerous storms, Kern County Fire says one of the easiest ways to be ready for potential flooding and other disasters is to sign up for alerts from Kern County Emergency Services. Just go to readykern.com.
17 Court Watch this morning. The attorneys who represented Tastries baker Kathy Miller, the Bakersfield woman who refused to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple in 2017, have been awarded $3.6 million. Judge Eric Bradshaw ordered the state to pay attorneys at Lamondre and Jana LLP, noting they took the case pro bono and spent more than 4 years on it. The lawyers argued the creation of a cake is a form of artistic expression, and the state can't force a person to create art against their will. Bradshaw ruled in Tastries' favor last October. Judge Bradshaw also awarded the same attorneys nearly $220,000 in attorney fees for representing a defendant in a lawsuit brought by former Bakersfield priest Craig Harrison. The firm represented Stephen Brady. Harrison argued that Brady and a former monk made false and defamatory statements about him, but an appellate court ruled the statements were protected free speech. Harrison's lawyer says it's unlikely he can pay the fees.
A wrongful death lawsuit has been filed against Kern County and PG&E in connection with the deadly explosion at a Bakersfield apartment last year. The children of Cleveland Amos filed the suit, alleging PG&E failed to properly maintain a gas pipeline, resulting in the blast that destroyed a wall of Amos's apartment and flung him onto the street. Amos suffered third-degree burns all over his body and died a few days later. The suit seeks damages in an amount to be determined at trial. Meantime, we now know the name of a man who was killed in southwest Bakersfield over the weekend. The sheriff's office says Everardo Lozano was assaulted outside a home on Stable Avenue Saturday night. No word yet on any arrests.
Kernville is seeing drastic changes after a storm brought severe flooding. However, these changes might not last as Kern braces for another storm to come this week.
The rivers has never been anything like that I've seen ever, so it was pretty eye-opening.
Kernville resident Mike Doherty and his wife Tracy say they are both in shock to see the difference a few days can make. Friday, Kernville was dangerously flooded, but now the same areas are nearly dry. However, the river is still full of water and another storm is heading this way. Tracy Doherty hopes it's not worse than the last.
I hope not. It would be hard to imagine, but now we are prepared for the worst. Now we know what is going to happen next time the floods come to our own home and our neighbors and stuff.
The Dohertys say members of the community have been getting sandbags and are ready to help when the storm comes.
It's a great community up here and everybody's so friendly, and everybody's always ready to lend a hand if you needed it.
During the last storm, officials told everyone in the area to flee due to the water levels becoming life-threatening. Yet many throughout the day came to witness it for themselves before leaving, a move some might call questionable in times of an emergency, but Doherty disagrees.
We don't see a lot of action like that up here, so everybody wants to see it.
Kernville resident John Howells watched as well as the homes across from him were covered in water and says for the next storm it is important to work together.
Keep your eye open, keep your ear open, and listen to your neighbor, check on your neighbor. That's a big thing. A couple of days ago when this came through, I mean, my lodge alone, we did health checks with all of our people in those areas that were affected, and thank God everybody's okay.
As Kern County is projected to be hit with another storm, the evacuation orders in Kernville still remain due to flooding. And county officials are saying it is important to evacuate the area until the evacuation order is lifted. Michaela Armstrong, 17 News.
Making headlines around the nation this morning, former representative and pioneer for women's rights, Pat Schroeder, has died. According to her former press secretary, Schroeder recently suffered a stroke and died at a hospital in Florida, where she had been residing in recent years. She was first elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1872 and went on to serve Congress for more than 2 decades. She became known as a forceful voice on issues for women's reproductive rights to arms control. Schroeder was 82 years old. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has been released from the hospital 5 days after suffering a fall at a Washington, D.C. hotel. The 81-year-old senator is recovering from a concussion, and his medical team also discovered he has a minor rib fracture. McConnell will undergo physical therapy at a rehabilitation facility before returning home.
We're keeping an eye on the markets today to see if investors remain jittery following the weekend collapse of 2 banks. The federal government took action to prevent a banking crisis, but concerns remain as to whether this is a sign of things to come. NBC's Bree Jackson reports.
A sigh of relief following some panic.
I mean, we didn't know, how we were going to make ends meet in the coming weeks.
I had thoughts, but now I don't have any thoughts because it seems like that everything is okay.
The federal government took extraordinary steps to protect customers at 2 failed financial institutions, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. The Biden administration stressed the move will not come at a cost to taxpayers, unlike the bank bailouts in 2008. The president says tougher restrictions were in place to prevent something like this, but
unfortunately, the last administration rolled back some of these requirements.
Former President Trump, who is running for the White House again, told supporters in Iowa Monday night that the current administration is to blame for inflation and other economic woes.
That's a bad sign. That could be the beginning. We have an economy that's in shambles.
But many experts say Americans should have confidence in the banking system.
I don't think anyone should have concern about the safety of their money in a federally assured institution.
And urged people to remain calm.
The U.S. government has now effectively guaranteed all deposits and said, keep your money where it is. No matter what happens to these banks, we are ensuring the money.
The president wants Congress to take action to prevent future bank failures. This morning, the Consumer Price Index report comes out. It's a key inflation measure, and depending on that report, the Federal Reserve could boost the size of its next interest rate hike, and rising interest rates played a key role in the recent bank failures. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.